This is why the Zionists in the United States, especially these people like Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, the hardcore Christian Zionists, MAGA fascists, these people will say that you believe in radical Marxist socialism if you advocate for free healthcare, single payer healthcare system, which saves money. Meanwhile, those same people have no criticism of our taxpayer money subsidizing free Israeli healthcare. Someone please explain to me that contradiction. So what does this lead to? What does this lead to? This leads to us having a treasonous government where they don't even pretend. They don't even pretend that they are representing us. In fact, we are living in an era of unprecedented rise of Ziofascism. Germany, the UK, completely cooked. Many of these countries are already completely cooked because, especially after October 7th, after the order to implement the final solution was put in, and this is when the great noticing happened, because Zionists put out the order. They put out the message that it's go time. Every single Israeli asset that we have, it's time for you to go full-fledged pro-genocidal, pro-Israel unapologetically. Like, think about all the people who never talk about geopolitics, who started putting out statements about Israel has the right to defend themselves. We've seen a great unmasking that the ruling class, they almost got so arrogant they couldn't imagine something like this happening. Where even people in the MAGA right is criticizing U.S. support for the state of Israel. Now you have Trump saying this. Oh, Jesus Christ. So we have Donald Trump that is waging tariff wars on countries because they are recognizing Palestine, which will directly pass the cost on to consumers. It's a deeply regressive policy where the ruling class is not really impacted. They can shift numbers around. They can adjust their shipping routes. The blow is not felt by them. The sacrifice is felt by the consumers inherently. So Trump wants you to pay more so we can defend the honor of Israel and use our clout on the international stage to defend Israel. Now Donald Trump has reached the next level of treasonous behavior. This is probably one of the greatest acts of treason we've ever seen from a president. The Trump administration will halt disaster relief funds to U.S. states and cities that boycott Israel. This is our friend Proud Socialist. I love this account here. What happened to America First? Look, U.S. links $1.9 billion in state disaster funds to Israel boycott stance. This, in a rational society, this is where people should hit the streets. This is where, to me, this is an impeachable offense. Like, this is way bigger and legitimate a reason to impeach a president than Russiagate and all the nonsense that Democrats came up with. But I'm gonna show you guys the complete and utter MAGA meltdown, because everyone in their mama, no matter what you are on the Overton window, because even if you're on the right, the idea that you withhold aid to a people just because they don't support Israel, it's batshit crazy. So you even have people on the right, bro, that's like, what is this? Here, Matt Walsh. There is no way to reasonably claim that this qualifies as American first. Jake Shields. Trump will let Americans die if they don't pledge allegiance to Israel. Let's hold that thought, bro. Think about the implications of what this means. Trump will let Americans die if they don't pledge allegiance to Israel. Like I said earlier, this is a complete act of treason. It's time for MAGA to wake the fuck up and realize that Trump is an agent of Israel. He's an agent of the capitalist class. Once again, this is more of the chicken or the egg conversation. What's first? Are we Zionists captured and controlled because we have a rogue capitalist class? Or do we have a rogue capitalist class because we're Zionist controlled? Depends on how you want to spin that argument. Here's Siger. I saw a clip from Breaking Punch, bro. My fucking jaw hit the floor. The Siger still, to this day, is arguing. You guys know, he is, to this day, arguing that Israel is not committing a genocide. I didn't have time to cover it because I don't have time to cover these fucking people. But Siger, like, man, I think it's not. I agree with Bernie Sanders. I think it's a really charged term. It's not the right time. It's like, now you guys see why they favored in the algorithm? So even people like Siger, who refuses to call what Israel doing a genocide, someone who still bootlegs for the Zionist-controlled Republican Party, even he is like, bro, Trump's decision to withhold disaster relief funds is even more insane than I thought. It extends a ban on disaster funds from our tax dollars to anyone who refuses to deal with Israeli companies. Jesus Christ. Like, can you understand how desperate they are? I don't know. This is a right-wing guy. He's a pretty big count. I think he's on the right. Like, this is the reaction everyone has. Just wait. What the fuck? Oh, look at my tweet. Look at my mini tweet banging. I'm just now checking up on this. Look, I said Christian Zionism is pure cancer. Like, this tweet banging. This is kind of wild. I'm going to get to this because this is what Trump, he already did this before. Texas City requires Israel pledge for hurricane relief. This is MAGA Zionism in Zionism in a nutshell. This is why the Zionists in the United States, especially these people like Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, the hardcore Christian Zionists, MAGA fascists. These people will say that you believe in radical Marxist socialism if you advocate for free healthcare, single-payer healthcare system, which saves money. Meanwhile, those same people have no criticism of our taxpayer money subsidizing free Israeli healthcare. Someone please explain to me that contradiction. Why, according to Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham, Donald Trump, all these, and obviously there's a lot of Democrats where this applied to, right? Hakeem Jeffries, Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker. Like, these are the people who, like, Fox News is making Zoran Mamdani sound like fucking Rome. Like, they're making Zoran Mamdani sound like fucking Malcolm X because they like, Zoran Mamdani is going to implement a Soviet Union-style Marxist-Leninist. No, he's a fucking Democrat socialist. He's already backtracking on defund the police, by the way, which I told you guys is going to happen. He's literally a social democrat who was like, hey, man, I think we should have 3 government-funded grocery stores in the entirety of New York. Only 3. Which I'm not hating on the policy, but the idea you're going to call this man a fucking pretend he's Malcolm X because of that policy, as he's bending the knee to God-chosen people. So the same people who call Zoran Mamdani and Bernie Sanders fucking Malcolm X, fucking Rome Bethea, Marcus Garvey, they would have no problem with Israel getting free healthcare off our backs. How is that not treasonous? But anyway, we already know capitalists don't fucking think. But the backlash to this is incredible, though. I wish I had more time. Maybe I can scroll through some of these. Actually, yeah, I'm actually want to show you guys some more because it's universal across the board on the left and the right, dragging these motherfuckers. Oh man, bro, I have never seen a political movement fall apart like MAGA has. Which credit to them because the Democrat genocide cult, they rode with Genocide Joe to the end, bro. Literally until he was forced to pull out because he collapsed. His motherfucker literally had a mental collapse on the debate stage. And it was that moment, it was like, damn, I guess we're done. MAGA was like, dude, what the fuck is this, bro? We already know, you guys know Donald Trump, despite what these MAGA grifters say, Donald Trump is historically unpopular as a president. Majority of the American people hate Trump. Go outside and ask people about Donald Trump. These MAGA people, they are in their little bubbles. They write to their MAGA pen pals. And they have a race to the bottom with the also unpopular Democratic Party. And then they think they're the shit. They're not shit. 88 million Americans see through you. The RBA community sees through you, as well as 88 million Americans. And now among the 30% of the most hardcore, even they are turning against Trump in the ruling class. It's going to be very interesting to see how the ruling class get out of this. The ruling class has been in the bind before, and they always find a way to get out of it. Just like after George W. Bush, the Republican Party was completely cooked to the point where America elected a black dude named Barack Hussein Obama. I still remember being in high school around that time, bro. People thought that Democrats was going to dominate forever, bro. Like, I don't know if Gen Z people understand. I thought the Republican Party was buried and dead after Barack Obama. But you gotta know it's the job of the ruling class party to help rehabilitate the dying opposition party. You have Barack Obama win on a progressive platform and win on ending the wars, and then he bail out the banks, tank black wealth, expand George W. Bush's war from 2 to 7, become the drone strike king, and then that leads to Donald Trump. You guys see how the Democratic Party bailed out the Republican Party? And right as the Democratic Party was historically unpopular, after the historic failure of Barack Obama, they have Bernie Sanders that come. Hey guys, look, we are going to change the Democratic Party. Then a ton of people get sheepdog back to the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders tells them to vote for Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, and they're back in business. Joe Biden wins the next election, they're back in business. You had October 7th, you had January 6th. So many of these bullshit political hoaxes, I can get them all confused. But you had January 6th, Donald Trump loses to Joe Biden, and then all of a sudden MAGA and Republican Party seems like they're weak. You guys see how at 30 years old, this shit has got already extremely old to me. It's very weird to me that I see people 50, 60 years old going through the same pattern. Oh, here's a Republican. Guess I'll vote for him. Oh, here's a Democrat. I guess I'll vote for the Democrat this time. You understand how fucking goofy this is to me? I was like 25. I'm like, I'm done with this shit, bro. 1 or 2 election cycles. And then now I'm just watching the same story play out every single fucking time. Now back to the story. Donald Trump was down. The MAGA Republicans was down, especially after January 6th. That scared the shit out of the normies. And so what do the Democrats do in order to bail out the Republican Party and Donald Trump? They committed genocide. they had to go that far. They had to commit a fucking genocide in order to bail the Democratic Party back out. I mean, bail out Donald Trump. So now Democrats are historically unpopular. Donald Trump, it seems like, was about to dominate the culture. Like, bro, Donald Trump was at UFC fights. meeting with Dana White. He was meeting with rappers like Lil Wayne and shit. This motherfucker, he was dominating the culture. So then what does this motherfucker do? Not only did he continue the genocide, he takes a strictly pro-pedophile position. The one thing that would destroy his base, a pro-Jeffrey Epstein, floats the idea of pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, now threats to pull funds to American cities to defend the state of Israel. Like, this man lost his damn mind. You actually, the people on the right destroying them on this. That Nick Fuentes whooping his ass. I already show you guys that one. I just want to show you. I want to see more MAGA accounts. Dan Bilzerian is an anti-Zionist, but he's an anti-communist reactionary guy. But here's an example of how much the Zionists lost the broad Overton window. And Dan Bilzerian, he has great tweets on Israel, but he makes me fucking cringe because he's the kind of person that don't you know that the Soviet Union and communism was created by Jews? I'm like, God damn it, dude. Everyone in the RBN community, we know, because I explained this many times before, Karl Marx's critique of capitalism came from analyzing Western societies and comparing it to indigenous structures. And he explained how when you look at indigenous societies, they had way less wealth than these Western industrial capitalist societies, but their people was much happier. They had better health. They seemed to be less sickly. And Kwame Ture has a great lecture where he explains this, where he always backs down the idea when people say, don't you know that Marxism is a Jewish or white idea? He's like, no, the idea of Marxism came from analyzing indigenous societies, indigenous structures. How indigenous society provided free healthcare for each other. How the society as a whole owned the means of production. And that was the basis and thesis of Marxist theory. It's not that the whites or any Jewish person created Marxism and socialism. It came from analyzing already existing structures that was largely prevalent in African, indigenous countries, South American countries, essentially non-Western societies. So the idea was like, man, if the West is so much powerful, if we really believe in Eurocentric dominance and the fact that we are such a much better people, why do we have more? Why do we steal from them, but we still are so worse off? Like when you look at the Indigenous Hawaiians, they lived a very socialist-like existence. When you listen to Awani K. Trask, she explains how they got all the work done. They only work like 4 hours a week. They make sure everyone had a house. Everyone was extremely well fed. Like, this is how Indigenous Hawaiians lived before the West colonized them. And then you had colonizers who they judged the Indigenous Hawaiian population harshly using their racist, Eurocentric view of the world. I explained this to you guys before. How they saw these indigenous Hawaiian people who would work super early in the day, finish by around noon, and then they will relax and feast for the rest of the day. So these white Europeans who are used to waking up late and working late, they would view these indigenous Hawaiians as lazy, and they would view them as savages because they didn't have the same central planning model as they did in Europe. That's how they justified dehumanizing them. Oh, we need to bring society to the Hawaiian peasants. Guys, why did they run their society that way? Because Hawaii is extremely hot. So you didn't want to be working during the prime of the day like many people did in Europe. And many European slave-running societies, they don't give a fuck about working the people to death. But if you have a society that care about people, that want the best out of your people, they realize the best thing they can do is work when the sun is still setting, when it's still early in the morning, and then from the rest of the day, they can relax and chill and build community, and then they provide it for everyone as everyone needed to be met. Now, so when Western European society saw these people, they just viewed them as savages who didn't have society. Even though the white peasants in their societies had a life expectancy rate. They only lived to be around 26, 30. Like these white peasants in the European society, they had lead poisoning. Like 30% of them died before the age of 8. That's why it's hilarious when you listen to Nick Fuentes and all these white supremacists. They're like, don't you know we had these great societies? You mean those great societies where you were lucky to live before you passed the age of 14? Those great societies we had no plumbing, where people died of you guys know in medieval Europe, and I'm kind of ranting here, but that's what my show's for. You guys know in medieval Europe, they averaged a famine around once every 25 years. Once every 25 years or so, they will have a famine that will wipe out a vast majority of their population. Famines is the history of Europe. And the ruling class survived them because their central planning model was so horrible. Remember, despite our critiques of neoliberal capitalism replaced feudalism. It replaced the monarchy system where the ruling class would just essentially steal all the wealth. And they will steal all the wealth. They will ban the peasants from hunting. They control the food and the supplies. So you know what happened because of this ridiculous central planning model that the master race came up with? You have famines all the fucking time. Whenever you had droughts, whenever the crops wouldn't go the way they want, they had no backup plan. And this is how my show is. I told you guys before, I was a fan of history before politics. You guys thought it was bullshit. I can rant about history, especially like European history, forever. And when you study European history and when you study the history of the white peasant, white supremacists sound so stupid to you. Because what do? When they study history, they study the history of the ruling class. They study kings. They study queens. They study the lives of the lords. That's what all the stories are about, the stories of the lords and the ruling class, despite the fact that 95% of the population in Europe during the monarchy era is full of peasants and farmers. So ask yourself this question. Whenever white supremacists and people who believe in the dominance of white society and how they're more superior than everyone else, whenever they talk about history, why do they only talk about their ruling class? Why don't you guys talk about your famines? Why don't you guys talk about the fact that the white peasantry went so crazy that they will have like these dance-offs in the streets? If you read about the French Revolution, you know a lot about this, how the stress of life will break these people to the point where they'll start dancing mad. They'll stop feeding themselves and take care of themselves. And they didn't know anything about mental illness, so they called them just crazy. They was possessed by the spirit. Essentially, these European societies built a culture that was so hard on people, it was breaking them. And that's when, remember, humanity was much more religious back in the day. So people will go through these mental breaks because society is breaking them. And they're like, oh, he's being possessed by demons. Oh, look. Oh, this is what happens when you don't follow the will of God. He must have cursed. He must have sinned. This is the society that people like Nick Fuentes are like, we need to go back. We need to go back to the greatness of white European society. What are you talking about? Do you understand how much humanity has improved and developed since the age of the starvation and how much the white peasant has suffered? Now, you guys see why people like Nick Fuentes and these people would never have these debates with me, because these people sound stupid when you understand their history. I'm not saying like Indians, Africans, South American. No, I'm not saying everything was hunky-dory for everybody, but the history of European society is the history of famines, the history of war, the history of them just murdering each other. So that's why, to me, for them to turn around like, man, we are the peak of society. We are the greatest of all people. It's absurd at face value. We unlocked the next level of civilization when people came together and we combined the best of our traits together to advance society while ditching our worst. And the fact that white nationalists, and these people don't understand this, just shows how naturally low IQ they are. These people who have no accomplishments for themselves. So they take accomplishments and false accomplishments from ancestors and people who have nothing to do with them. Now that was one hell of a rant. I need to get back to some stories, man. We were talking about the IDF. I get some super chats. I want a whole critique about and that whole history lesson that we can continue all day. But Nick, I know a lot of Christians who think they can do what they want because they'll be forgiven. Yeah, very wild. I don't understand, man. I don't get it, but I'll move on. I'm not gonna go on my edgy ass rants. But you wanna know what's funny? Because we can get back to this story here with the Trump administration. I was showing some reactions. Trump administration will halt disaster relief funds. And they took so much heat from this. I want to look at some more reactions as we cover this. I'm just kind of interested. Because now you had the Trump administration backtracking. Here, Crystal, denying American victims of natural disaster aid if they are insufficiently supportive of Israel, absolute insanity. Trump will block federal aid to all. Say, look, bro, this is spreading like wildfire. This is another right. This person right here is so cringe. She's a hard right winger, bro. But here she is. So let me get this straight. The government takes our taxpayer dollars that are supposed to be used for our disasters and are now threatening to withhold it if Americans choose to boycott Israel. Why is Israel even being considered when it comes for disaster aid for Americans? So you know it's bad when, if you don't know this person, I see her tweets every once in a while. She is one of the most cringe culture warrior MAGA accounts you can find. Just one of those generic motherfuckers, right? The fact that even the hardcore Trump sycophants are recoiling at his actions just shows how much the Zionist capitalist class has been exposed.